Section: Introduction. In this section, we delve into the concept of regression, a cornerstone task in experimental design that spans across various fields such as hyperparameter tuning, computer software, industrial engineering, and chemical discovery. Our main objective in regression is to predict a certain metric, let's call it y, of a general system based on a set of input features, which we'll refer to as x. These regression models are incredibly useful for a range of applications, including but not limited to offline and online optimization, low-cost benchmarking, and simulation. In recent years, we've seen the rise of large language models, LLMs, as potent tools for processing textual data on a large scale. These models have demonstrated their ability to represent complex relationships between input features and output labels across massive and diverse datasets. Given their success in tasks beyond natural language processing, such as coding, symbolic mathematics, and scientific reasoning, it prompts us to question whether language models could also be employed for regression tasks. Exploring this question is crucial not only for the traditional realm of experimental design but also for the evolving field of LLM research. This is particularly relevant given the growing interest in forecasting outcomes of complex systems and in reward modeling for reinforcement learning fine-tuning. The textual processing capabilities of LLMs are especially appealing as they could potentially eliminate the tedious task of converting input features into raw numerical tensors. Prior to our investigation, there hasn't been research specifically focused on the feasibility and utility of training a universal metric predictor using a large heterogeneous offline dataset. Our main contributions are as follows. We introduce OmniPred, the first scalable yet straightforward metric prediction framework that relies on constraint-independent textual representations, making it applicable to a wide range of input spaces. Through text and token-based representations, OmniPred achieves highly accurate metric predictions across various experimental design data. By learning across different input spaces and objectives simultaneously, OmniPred often surpasses traditional regression models like MLPs and boosted trees in performance. Moreover, these transfer learning benefits continue to hold even when OmniPred is fine-tuned on small amounts of new evaluation data for unseen tasks. Moving on to related work and motivation, traditional regression methods have extensively utilized statistical techniques such as Gaussian processes, tree-based methods, and multilayer perceptrons. These methods predict a scalar objective based on a fixed-length feature vector, a common scenario in tabular data settings. Although multitask and contextual variants have been proposed for transfer learning, they still require fixed-length tensor representations of the input features, limiting their applicability to new or varied input spaces. Recent advancements have introduced deep learning-based regressors like transformers, recurrent neural networks, graph neural networks, and deep hierarchical Gaussian processes, which offer some flexibility regarding input length. However, a persistent challenge is the reliance on tensor representations of the input and output, which are inherently constraint-dependent. This means each feature must be normalized or one-hot encoded based on predefined bounds or categories, making it difficult to adapt to minor changes in the input space or to handle outlier values in the output. Ideally, a regressor should process input features and output metrics in absolute terms, unaffected by external changes in statistics or constraints. Token-based representations of data offer a promising solution by allowing for variable-length inputs and additional contextual metadata. This approach has been successful in reinforcement learning from human feedback, where regression over textual responses has been key to the development of interactive LLMs like ChatGPT and Bard. These models can mimic human ratings through pairwise rankings or probabilistic scores, demonstrating the potential of language models in evaluating complex and natural systems typical of experimental design. Despite the focus on subjective feedback for aspects like creativity and safety, less attention has been paid to using language models for objective, numeric-based data evaluation in experimental design. Given the concerns about the accuracy and reliability of numerical processing in language models, it's not immediately clear if they can achieve high-precision numerical predictions over token-based representations. Addressing this challenge is a key goal of our paper as we seek to develop a general-purpose predictor. Section Summary. In this section, we introduce the concept of regression, which is crucial in various fields like hyperparameter tuning and industrial engineering, aiming to predict a metric y based on input features x. We propose OmniPred, a novel metric prediction framework utilizing textual representations that outperforms traditional regression models by leveraging transfer learning benefits across different input spaces and objectives. By using text and token-based representations, OmniPred achieves accurate metric predictions without the need for tedious featurization, offering a scalable and effective approach for forecasting outcomes in experimental design and reinforcement learning fine-tuning. Section: Methodology. In this section, we delve into the methodology of our study, starting with the basics and defining the problem we aim to solve. In the realm of black box optimization, we consider a task to be defined by a set of components: an input space from which suggestions are selected, an objective function that assigns a real numbered value to each suggestion, a collection of trials that are evaluations of these suggestions, and possibly some metadata that provides additional information about the task. We refer to this collection of trials as a study, which is essentially a historical record of past evaluations. Our main objective is to predict the outcome of the objective function for any given input from the input space. To do this, we aim to create a model that can estimate the distribution of possible outcomes based on the input. This model is trained using data from previous trials. Moreover, we enhance our model's learning by incorporating data from multiple tasks, even if these tasks do not directly relate to the objective function we are currently interested in. This approach is based on the idea that learning from a variety of tasks can improve the model's ability to generalize and perform well on similar tasks. To measure how well our model predicts, we look at the difference between the model's predictions and the actual outcomes. Since the scale of outcomes can vary greatly across different studies, we normalize this difference using statistics specific to each study. This helps us compare performance across tasks with different scales of outcomes. Additionally, to avoid letting extreme predictions overly influence our assessment, we cap the maximum error a prediction can contribute. In terms of the technical setup, we focus on a multitask regression framework. This means that for any given trial, the model receives both the input and some task-level metadata, and it predicts the outcome. We use a standard T5 encoder-decoder model with 200 million parameters, trained from scratch. Our goal is to train this model in such a way that it can predict outcomes for any task, using a single set of learned parameters. To handle the diversity of data across different tasks, we standardize the way we represent inputs and outcomes. Inputs are represented in a key value format, which allows us to accommodate a wide range of input types. Outcomes are represented using custom tokens that capture numerical values in a consistent manner, ensuring that the model can accurately predict numerical outcomes. During training, we focus on minimizing the difference between the predicted and actual outcomes, using a standard loss function common in language model training. This approach allows the model to learn about numerical relationships in the data without being influenced by the specific scales used in different studies. For generating predictions, we use a technique called temperature decoding to sample multiple possible outcomes. This helps us estimate the distribution of outcomes the model has learned. We then use the median of these samples as our final prediction, although we explore other aggregation methods as well. Finally, we discuss how our model can be fine-tuned for specific tasks that it hasn't seen during the initial training phase. This fine-tuning process allows the model to adapt to new tasks quickly, making it more versatile and effective in a wide range of scenarios. Section Summary. In this section, we introduce the methodology and problem definition for our study. We define a task as having an objective function f and trials, x, y, obtained from evaluating suggestions x. Our goal is to predict a distribution function s, x, that approximates f, x, accurately, even when trained on multitask data from various tasks. We use a language model to learn a single set of weights theta for predicting y, ensuring generalizability across different studies by representing inputs and outputs in an absolute manner and training the model through cross-entropy loss and sampling techniques. Section: Vizier Format. In this section, we delve into how the concepts discussed earlier are practically applied in open-source Vizier, a tool designed for optimizing without a clear model, black box, and for fine-tuning parameters, hyperparameter optimization. We define every possible option space, denoted as X, as a collection of parameters. These parameters can be of various types: double, integer, discrete, or categorical, each accompanied by a set of possible values. Some parameters are conditional, meaning they only become relevant if another parameter, their parent, is set to a specific value. For instance, the parameter beta might only be used if another parameter selects the option atom and not SGD. Additionally, we include task-level information, such as the title of the task, the username of the person who owns it, a description, the name of the objective, and any other optional details. This setup allows Vizier to offer a tailored optimization service, accommodating various user-specific scenarios. These scenarios range from a single user or team repeatedly fine-tuning similar experiments, to multiple users working on similar projects, or even the use of common parameters across different experiments. The nature of the objective function and the datasets used also contribute to the versatility of our approach. For controlled experiments, we use a modified version of the BBOB benchmark, introducing random shifts to the domain to create a variety of tasks. Each task is defined by specific parameters, including the class of function, its dimension, and the shift applied. This setup allows us to evaluate our approach on tasks with unseen parameters. In these experiments, we aim to minimize the size of the training data for each specific task while allowing for variability in the training data from other tasks. This approach challenges traditional models, which typically learn from a single dataset, but it suits our method, which benefits from exposure to a variety of tasks. When it comes to real-world data, we leverage the extensive database from Google Vizier. Unlike in controlled experiments, we work with incomplete data trajectories and a wide range of tasks. Our dataset is significantly larger than those used in previous studies, allowing for a more comprehensive training of our model, outperforming. However, since we don't have direct access to the objective functions, only to data samples, we evaluate our model's performance using a test set. The challenge lies in ensuring the training data adequately represents the option space, which is influenced by factors such as the number of trials, the diversity of these trials, and the size of the option space. We conduct experiments to address several critical questions. We explore whether it's feasible to predict outcomes across multiple tasks with varying input spaces and objectives, the potential benefits of training on multiple tasks simultaneously, and whether incorporating textual information aids in transfer learning. We also investigate if fine-tuning our model can enhance its performance on new, unseen tasks. Additional details on our model's capabilities and the baseline comparisons are provided in the appendix, along with information on the implementation of our language model and the baseline model. Section Summary. In this section, we implement the abstractions discussed earlier in the open-source Vizier, a tool for black box and hyperparameter optimization. Parameters in Vizier are defined by type and value sets, with the ability for child parameters to be active based on specific parent parameter values. We explore tasks with task-level metadata and introduce the BBOB benchmark with random domain shifts for controlled experiments, highlighting the importance of training data size and transferability across tasks. Section: Simultaneous Regression. In this section, we discuss how a model trained on the BBOB dataset can accurately capture the essence of analytical functions with varying objective scales, as shown in our visual representations. This model not only predicts with high precision but also estimates uncertainty through independent and identically distributed prediction samples. When we look at models trained on real-world data, we present similar visualizations for selected studies from Google's internal objectives. These studies span a wide range of areas, including standard machine learning tasks like image classification and language modeling, production systems such as Google's bid simulation and LLM inference latency, and scientific research areas like protein and hardware design. We then explore the model's ability to transfer knowledge across tasks, which means it can use the knowledge gained from one task to improve its performance on another, similar task. This is in contrast to models that only learn from data related to the task they are currently evaluating. Our findings show that the model's accuracy increases as it is exposed to more tasks during training, eventually surpassing traditional models that do not utilize transfer learning. For studies related to AutoML at Google, we calculate the error based on a fixed subset of studies. Additionally, we demonstrate the model's capability to generalize across studies by evaluating it on unseen tasks with new conditions not encountered during training. To test if the model performs transfer learning by recognizing textual cues, we compare its performance on data that has been anonymized, using a study-specific hash function. This process involves hashing metadata for the BBOB dataset and hashing parameter names and string values for AutoML studies. Despite each study being uniquely identifiable, the model struggles to train on the fully anonymized BBOB dataset due to its size and diversity. Our results also show that training the model on multiple tasks consistently yields better performance than training on a single task, especially in cases where the training data does not fully cover the input space. Interestingly, a model trained from scratch on a single task remains a competitive option and can outperform other single-task models in certain domains. Lastly, we examine the potential benefits of fine-tuning pre-trained models on AutoML studies. Our analysis reveals that fine-tuning a model pre-trained on the entire Vizier dataset achieves similar accuracy levels to a model pre-trained specifically on AutoML data. However, a model pre-trained on the BBOB dataset performs worse than even a single task model. This suggests that the knowledge gained from pre-training can significantly influence a model's ability to transfer learning to specific domains like AutoML. We further investigate this by evaluating the model on tasks that were newly created after the original training set was compiled, including studies from new users and objectives. Our comparison shows that pre-training can greatly enhance the model's predictions on new tasks, although there are instances where it may lead to negative transfer.